I file a few lawsuits and I'm in the court now.
Cancel culture. And she claims there can be unintended consequences. Take a look.
For more than 2 decades, The View was a staple of daytime television, a show where heated debates, political discourse, and pop culture collided. Over the years, it built a reputation for bold opinions and unfiltered commentary, often making
and we all know what I'm talking about, whether you think there is one or there isn't one, or where you
headlines for its controversial takes on major public figures. But as the 2024 election cycle heated up, the show found itself at the center of a legal storm that ultimately led to its downfall. The controversy that finally sealed its fate came from an unexpected source: Melania Trump. For years, the hosts of The View had taken frequent jabs at the former First Lady,
cancel culture. And she claims there can be unintended consequences. Take a look.
Mocking her accent, questioning her intelligence, and making crude remarks about her marriage. She was often portrayed as cold, indifferent, or trapped in a political arrangement she wanted no part of. While public figures are no strangers to media scrutiny, the relentless nature of the attacks on Melania stood out. The hosts repeatedly claimed she hated Christmas, refused to sleep in the same room as Donald Trump, and was desperately waiting for the right moment to leave him. These claims, often delivered as fact rather than speculation, were repeated so often that they became part of the larger media narrative about her. For a long time, Melania remained silent, choosing not to engage with the media circus surrounding her name. But behind the scenes she was watching. And when she,
as you may heard, I file a few lawsuits and I'm in the court now.
Finally decided to take action, it was swift and devastating. Her legal team compiled years' worth of video footage, transcripts, and media reports that they argued amounted to a clear case of defamation. The lawsuit she filed against The View was not just another legal battle. It was a direct challenge to the media's ability to spread unchecked claims under the guise of entertainment. ABC executives, already concerned about multiple lawsuits facing the network, realized they had a crisis on their hands. The fallout was immediate. The View had faced backlash before, but this time, there was no escaping the legal consequences. The lawsuit
allegedly paid $130,000.
Alleged that the show had knowingly spread false and damaging claims about Melania Trump, turning personal attacks into daily programming. ABC, already struggling to contain the damage, realized that defending the show in court could be disastrous. The potential financial
I file a few lawsuits and I'm in the court now.
Losses, combined with the reputational damage, made it impossible to justify keeping the show on air. The network executives had no choice but to pull the plug, marking the abrupt end of one of television's most iconic and divisive talk shows. The decision to cancel The View sent shockwaves through the industry. Whoopi Goldberg, one of the show's most vocal hosts, was reportedly furious, making frantic calls to network insiders in an attempt to salvage her career. She had been at the forefront of the show's most controversial discussions, and now the very platform that had elevated her voice was gone. Sources close to the network said she was in disbelief, struggling to understand how a show that had survived countless controversies had finally met its end. Joy Behar, another longtime host, was in full panic mode. She had spent years making scathing remarks about Donald Trump, conservatives, and anyone who disagreed with the show's progressive stance. With The View gone, she found herself without the platform that had protected her from accountability. There were rumors that she was desperately looking for a new media home, but given the legal battles surrounding the show's cancellation, few networks were willing to take the risk of bringing her on board. Sunny Hostin, who had long positioned herself as the legal expert of the panel, faced her own unique crisis. The lawsuit specifically named her as one of the individuals responsible for spreading falsehoods about Melania Trump. As a former prosecutor, Hostin had spent years discussing legal ethics and accountability, yet now she was accused of violating the very principles she had built her brand on. ABC executives, desperate to distance themselves from the scandal, reportedly forced her off the show immediately. The legal consequences were too severe to ignore, and the network was unwilling to risk further reputational damage by defending her actions. The legal battle didn't just affect the hosts. Insiders revealed that Barbara Walters, the legendary journalist who had originally created The View, had to step in behind the scenes to help clean up the mess. Walters, who had built her career on serious journalism, was reportedly disgusted by what The View had become. A show that once prided itself on diverse perspectives had devolved into a one-sided echo chamber where dissenting opinions were silenced. Walters had remained largely uninvolved in the day-to-day operations of the show in her later years. But when ABC executives realized the legal threat posed by Melania's lawsuit, they sought her advice on how to minimize the damage. Ultimately, even Walters couldn't save the show from its fate. As news of the cancellation spread, conservative media outlets celebrated it as a long-overdue reckoning for a show that had spent years attacking figures on the right without consequence. Liberal commentators, on the other hand, saw it as a troubling sign of growing hostility toward the press, arguing that public figures like Melania Trump were using the courts to silence criticism. Regardless of perspective, it was clear that The View's influence had finally run out. But the most shocking part of the story wasn't just that The View was cancelled. It was that Melania's lawsuit might only be the beginning. There were growing rumors that Donald Trump himself was preparing a series of legal challenges against media outlets that had spent years attacking him. The idea that The View was just the first domino to fall sent waves of panic through liberal media circles. If Melania's legal team had been able to build a case that led to the show's cancellation, what could Trump's team do with the countless false claims made against him over the years? Some reports suggested that Trump's legal team was looking into potential lawsuits against other networks that had pushed damaging narratives without evidence. ABC, already reeling from The View's cancellation, was bracing for further legal trouble. Other media giants, including CNN and MSNBC, were rumored to be preparing for potential legal challenges as well. The cancellation of The View wasn't just an isolated event. It marked the beginning of what some described as a full-scale war between the Trump family and mainstream media. Melania's legal team also made another bold move by pushing for an investigation into ABC's broadcasting license, arguing that the network had repeatedly engaged in misinformation. While it was unlikely that the network would lose its license entirely, the effort signaled that this was not just about The View, it was about holding media networks accountable for their content. If successful, it could set a precedent that forced networks to exercise far more caution in their reporting. The final episodes of The View aired with none of the drama and energy that had once defined the show. The co-hosts, aware that they were witnessing the end of an era, tried to put on a brave face, but the atmosphere was one of quiet resignation. The show that had once dominated headlines had been brought down not by ratings, not by a network decision, but by the very people it had spent years attacking.